Thanks for waking up with us.
It was a divine plan. America didn't happen by chance. All this was part of the divine plan that this would come about. The Moors then had a plan for a new world order. A one world, new world order. That was a Moorish plan originally. The Europeans inherited that plan through the Masonic Lodge, which was the vehicle by which we civilized and taught the Europeans. And so now when we hear them saying it, we ready to throw out the baby with the bathwater, thinking it's from them. No, we originally laid out that plan for one divine world order. And they merely inherited it. And when we fell off, they still espoused it. Even though many of them are not carrying out right and exact, because you got to understand that the European Masons who run this government, who run the international scene, that they're under certain oaths and obligations. There's certain things that they can't do. There's certain things that they can't speak on. They're functioning more or less in a custodial capacity or fiduciary capacity. They will make custodians. When we were falling from power, we said, all right, you see this throne? We're going to make you custodians of this throne. You're going to become the keepers of the light, not the bearers of the light. We were the bearers of the light. We was one who was able to have to go out there and re-educate the whole human family of planet Earth. We made them keepers, which means that it's but so much they could speak on. You look at their degree structure. Water freezes at what? 32 degrees, right? Well, the highest they go is 32 degrees, which means what? Their wisdom, their water, their wisdom is locked up. It's froze shut. They can't get out here teaching like we can. It's froze shut. And maybe once in a while, one of them may be honored with the honorary 33rd degree, and then they throw it out a little more. Maybe they can say a few things, but not too much. You see what I'm saying? And so we put those Europeans in power when we fell from power, because at that time the Catholic Church, through the Franciscan and Dominican orders, was destroying everything that the Moors had built up. All the civilization, all the high science that we had developed and cultivated and built up, they was destroying on a global level. And so we put the Europeans in power, Masons in power. We refer to them as the mystic Turks, or chief protectors of the sacred shrine. The shrine of what? The shrine of Moorish science, of Moorish civilization that we had cultivated for so long. We put them there in charge of it. And so they're custodians. And then sometimes happens that custodians forget their place and they start to think that they're the ones. But we got to remind them, y'all not the ones. Y'all the custodians. Y'all was to hold it and preserve it until we wake back up and then get this thing back on its original divine plan. So we are to convey to America that we're not about overthrowing this. No. As a matter of fact, we're about getting this thing back function on its original divine purpose. Because if we don't, it's going to be destroyed. As you see what's happening right now on a global level. America's going down a path now of self-destruction. And if we don't wake up and first save ourselves, and then in turn save America, it's going to be all over with.
You know, recently I've really been speaking about a false exodus, and I've spoken about this before. A brother in Christ sent me this video, and I honestly didn't know what to expect when I received the video and I started to watch it. But I want you to listen to what this woman says. So, obviously you see it says, if you are tired of racism, Ghana is an option. Just saying the Ghanaian government is sending us all the invite. Who will come with us to Ghana? So, we know about the year return, 2019, then you had 2020. I forgot what it's called, but 2020, 2020 beyond the year return right there. Beyond the return. 2020 is beyond the return. And they're still pushing for African Americans to come back to Africa. And Ghana has admitted their role that they played in the transatlantic slave trade. So let's see what this woman has to say and see if she has anything of interest to say.
We continue to open our arms and invite all our brothers and sisters home. Ghana is your home. Africa is your home. We have our arms wide open, ready to welcome you home. Please take advantage. Come home. Build a life in Ghana. You do not have to stay where you are not wanted forever. You have a choice, and Africa is waiting for you. Finally.
So you see, giving a whole spiel. Come home. You don't have to deal with the racism. You don't have to stay there and everything. But when you actually look at the whole situation with them recruiting African Americans to come back to Africa, it's not really set up very well. It's not very well organized.
I say, may the spirit of George Floyd rise like the phoenix.
Okay, that was the first very interesting thing to me that she said in the video. May the spirits of George Floyd rise from the ashes like the phoenix. Now, if you know anything about the phoenix rising from the ashes, it's pretty much, ultimately it boils down to Satan. Satan is known as the phoenix that is rising from the ashes. That also goes back to ancient Egypt. There's nothing new under the sun. I may go into detail after this. I haven't decided yet, but we'll see. So that's cold word. We must understand, we must remember that there is power in words. So when they're saying something, then they're saying it for a reason. And obviously she's reading from a piece of paper. Did she write this? Did somebody suggest this to her? Was it given to her? Since she's speaking to a group of people. You know, we don't really know unless we're going to take the time to dig into it. But either way, no matter how she got it or the reason that she, or not the reason, but no matter how she got it, rather it was herself writing it or somebody else, there's still a message that they are trying to portray and continue to push beyond the return. They're pushing for, again, African Americans to come back to Africa. And this all plays a part into the false exodus that's going to happen, and the Antichrist being a black man. Remember, with the world we currently live in, if we know who the true Hebrews are, which we do, we know that they are what we call black. What does it look like, or I should say, do you think that the true Hebrews of the flesh will accept a white Messiah? I don't see it happening. They're bucking the system now. They're bucking against, the fake image of Jesus now. So why would they accept a white Messiah? But what they would do is they would accept a black Messiah who is coming as Christ, but he is the devil himself. Ultimate deception. So let's see what else she has to say.
From the ashes of racism and lift up all persons of African descent from centuries of subjugation into a new world order.
Into a new world order. So she said, may the spirit of George Floyd rise like the phoenix from the ashes of racism. May the spirit of George Floyd rise like the phoenix from the ashes of racism. Well, when we studied George Floyd, we've covered him before, George Floyd was not a righteous man. Matter of fact, George Floyd professed to be a Christian. He lived a life contrary to what the Christian faith is about. Completely contrary. Even after his profession of faith. Obviously, you know, we all have a past, but that's not who we are anymore. So the problem isn't that George Floyd did these things. The problem is that George Floyd lived his life as a hypocrite, professing the Lord Jesus Christ. So to sit here and say for his spirit to rise from the ashes of racism like the phoenix, that's very, very telling. Into a new world order. And she kind of pauses when she gets to order, like new world. Oh, do I really want to say this? Let's go back real quick. Go back about right there, I think.
May the spirit of George Floyd rise like the phoenix.
May the spirits of George Floyd rise like the phoenix.
From the ashes of racism.
From the ashes of racism. If I'm not mistaken, I've covered this lady before. She's into some interfaith stuff. She's very ecumenical.
And lift up all persons of African descent from centuries of subjugation into a new world order.
Into a new world order. Out of what? Out of racism. So, remember my video I did on, so I got Pastor Omar, and I addressed Al Sharpton, and Al Sharpton mentioned about George Floyd being like a cornerstone, chief cornerstone that Christ was using for a new movement. She's saying the same thing. Because if she's talking about George Floyd, then she's talking about the people rising up from his sacrifice and what he did. Then in essence, George Floyd is the catalyst. He is a stone, a type of stone that they are speaking about for the people to build upon, to rise up out of the ashes with him through what happened to him, into this new world order that is subtracted from racism. And the only way you can have something like that is if you have a world or a place, Africa in this case, because Africa is very, very, very large, that is predominantly black, ruled by blacks, and laws and everything made by black people. Then racism it really doesn't exist, because you're not going to have to deal with the same things that you had to deal with here in America and around the world. Obviously, you will still have to deal with the same things you deal with your people that you already deal with, but you wouldn't have to deal with racism as we know it today, dealing with what we deal with today. So out of the destruction of racism, by coming back to Ghana, by coming back to Africa, by coming back to what they term as the motherland and what we also term as the motherland. You're stepping into a new world order, a world that's free from racism. And we know that's what they are trying to accomplish with the new world order. So, this is very, very interesting for her to say that. And I just realized when I seen her name that I've covered this woman before. And like I said, she's very, very, very ecumenical. She professes to be a Christian, but she seems more Muslim than anything. She seems to have a affinity for the Muslim faith and the Muslims over there that she supports and stuff like that. But you can pause it, go back, and you can get her name. You can go check her out on your own if you want to. So we got about 10 more seconds, and let's see what else she has to say.
Death, George Floyd, shall never be in vain. You are and will remain our brother. Thank you very much.
So she says at the end, obviously, his death will not be in vain, but his death was in vain. So she's going against the very word of God that she claims. He died in vain. So this is the same thing that happened with Satan. Satan did everything he did and does everything he does in vain. It's fruitless. It's going to lead him to destruction. He can try to rise from the ashes all that he wants, but the judgment is still going to be the same. Y'all excuse me because it is 1:40 in the morning as I'm recording this video. So when we go over here, we look at Phoenix. It says, mythical bird of great beauty, worshipped in Egypt. Worshipped in Egypt. The bird was the only one of its kind, and after living 500 or 600 years in the Arabian wilderness, the Bible talks about the Arabian wilderness. It also specifically talks about the Arabian wilderness in the end times, dealing with Mystery Babylon over in Basra, in that area. So it goes on and says, built for itself a funeral pile of spices and aromatic gums, lighted the pile with the fanning of its wings, and was burned upon it, but from its ashes revived in the freshness of youth. So we go over here and it says, in ancient Greek folklore, a phoenix is a long-lived bird that cyclically regenerates or is otherwise what? Born again. So what you're going to see as we continue forward, it's not so much about the bird, but what the bird symbolizes. And it's going to show you some things that we have discussed before. Associated with the sun worship, a phoenix obtains new life by arising from the ashes of its predecessor. So when she was talking about George Floyd and everybody else that follows in his footsteps rising out of the ashes of racism to this new world order, this new world order of peace. If you don't have racism, you have peace, because that's the biggest problem, not only in America but around the world. There's racism on both sides. Some legends say it dies in a show of flames and combustion. Others that it simply dies and decomposes before being born again. So they try to make a connection with Christ and everything, saying that the phoenix can also represent Christ. Let me see what else I want to read. There was something else if we go down here. It says classical discourse on the subject of the phoenix attributes a potential origin of the phoenix to ancient Egypt. Herodotus, writing in the 5th century BC, provides the following account of the phoenix. The Egyptians have also another sacred bird called the phoenix. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's called the Bennu bird in ancient Egypt, which I myself have never seen except in pictures. Indeed, it is a great rarity even in Egypt, only coming there according to the accounts of the people of Heliopolis once in 500 years when the old phoenix dies. Its size and appearance, if it is like the pictures, are as follow. The plumage is partly red, partly golden, while the general make and size are almost exactly that of the eagle. When you speak about the eagle on the back of the dollar bill, it's the phoenix. That's what it really is. It's not really an eagle, but it's a bird, so it's symbolized as an eagle. People think it's the eagle, but it's actually the phoenix, which is, depending on what source you read or however they want to tell the story, it can also be a rooster. And the rooster can also, like I said, depending on what source you read and what account you're reading, the rooster can fly, and the rooster is a dragon. So goes on and says they tell a story of what this bird does, which does not seem to me to be credible. That he comes all the way from Arabia and brings the parent bird, all plastered over with myrrh, to the temple of the sun, and there buries the body. In order to bring him, they say, he first forms a ball of myrrh as big as he finds that he can carry. Then he hollows out the ball and puts his parent inside, after which he covers over the opening with fresh myrrh, and the ball is then of exactly the same weight as at first. So he brings it to Egypt, plaster over, as I have said, and deposit it in the temple of the sun. Such is the story they tell of the doings of this bird. So according to Herodotus, they're saying that there was another one, because you had the parent bird, and then you had it says that he comes all the way from Arabia and brings the parent bird. So the younger one brings the parent bird, and the parent bird is about to be sacrificed on the altar, paving way for the new generation, and so that the parent bird can eventually be born again into either the parent or come back in another generation down the line. So depending on what source you read, like I said, they will say there's only one at one time, but here we're seeing, according to Herodotus, that there was at least two of them. And we can say at least there was at least three, because if you got the parent bird and you got the child, then you have two parents, but obviously only one parent bird is being brought. I forgot what it's called. It's called the Burning Man. It's kind of like the same thing. Semiramis and the egg and all that other stuff. Ishtar. It's the same story. It's the same story. Then it says, in the 19th century, scholastic suspicions appeared to be confirmed by the discovery that Egyptians in Heliopolis had venerated the Bennu, and that's what I was referring to. So yeah, I did remember correctly. A solar bird similar in some respects to the Greek phoenix. However, the Egyptian sources regarding the Bennu are often problematic and often to a variety of interpretations, which is what I was saying, depending on what source you read. Some of these sources may have actually been influenced by Greek notions of the phoenix rather than the other way around, which doesn't make any sense. So it says the phoenix is sometimes pictured in ancient and medieval literature and medieval art as endowed with a halo, which emphasizes the bird's connection with the sun. It's all about sun worship, and for them the sun is Lucifer. It's not about the sun itself. Not about the sun itself. It's about what the sun symbolizes to them, and the sun symbolizes to them the center of everything. To them, the sun is Lucifer, the light, the one who gives light and all these different things, where they can thrive in this physical world. I'm not going to read all that, just give different descriptions. Some people saying it look like this, some people saying it look like that. A lot of inconsistencies in regard to what the bird looked like. But I mean, it can be inconsistencies if you look at it like that, but I just see it in the same way I see people. You got different shades of black people. You got black people with different types of hair, different type of hair textures and stuff like that. So depending on, you know, the genes that this bird had, then I could see how this bird could have what we would think would be contradictory colors and stuff like that, or features. So I found this very, very interesting too. It says, in time, the motif and concept of the phoenix extended from its origins in ancient Greek folklore, which it goes back before that, obviously. For example, the classical motif of the phoenix continues in the Gnostic manuscript on the origin of the world from the Nag Hammadi library collection in Egypt, generally dated to the 4th century. So you have the Gnostics way back here. Thus, when Sophiazou saw that the rulers of darkness had laid a curse upon her counterparts, she was ignorant. And coming out of the first heaven with full power, she chased those rulers out of their heavens and cast them into the sinful world, so that there they should dwell in the form of evil spirits upon the earth, so that in their world it might pass 1,000 years in paradise. Now, you can take this and you can do what you want to with it. You can say, oh, this is Gnostic or whatever. But I just want to cover this to show you that the Bennu bird is even mentioned in the Gnostic beliefs. And some of the stuff they say is pretty interesting. It says it kills itself and brings itself back to life as a witness to the judgment against them, against the ones who were put on this earth in the form of evil spirits. And then it says, for they did wrong to Adam and his race. So, like I said, it's pretty interesting when I read that, because we would reference these as the fallen angels who did wrong to Adam and his race. So if you had the evil spirits as plural, you would have obviously Satan as the head honcho phoenix, and then you have the rest of them who will be the children of rebellion, who did wrong to Adam and us. So again, it says it kills itself and brings itself back to life as a witness to the judgment against them. And I also found that very, very interesting, because in the Bible it does say that Satan dies over and over again in his physical world. He dies over and over and over and over again, trying to pretty much, not trying to, but living the same nightmare over and over again, trying to accomplish the same thing, which is exalt himself back to the position that he once had by rising out of the ashes of every civilization and everything. You know, he helps build it up, and then what happens? It ends up being destroyed, ashes, nothing, like it never existed, and then he has to start from scratch all over again. So that's a living nightmare, and the Bible does teach that. So again, it kills itself and brings itself back to life as a witness to the judgment against them, for they did wrong to Adam and his race unto the consummation of the age. There are 3 men and also his posterities unto the consummation of the world, the spirit endowed of eternity, and the soul endowed, and the earthly. Likewise, there are 3 phoenixes in paradise. The first is immortal, the second lives 1,000 years. As for the third, it is written in the sacred book that is consumed. So too, there are three baptisms. The first is spiritual, the second is by fire, the third is by water. Just as the phoenix appears as a witness concerning the angels, so the case of the water, Hydri in Egypt, which has been a witness to those going down into the baptism of a true man. The two bulls in Egypt possess a mystery, the sun and the moon being a witness to Sabaoth, namely that over them Sophia received the universe. From the day that she made the sun and moon, she put a seal upon her heaven unto eternity. And I mentioned Sophia. You can argue if this is a little person or a goddess or whatnot, or personification. We know the Bible references Sophia in regards to wisdom. Many people argue about that. Saying try to say that God is a woman because Sophia represents wisdom, and that's not what the scriptures are saying. Wisdom is soft. Wisdom is like honey; it's sweet, and that's the context of the scriptures when it speaks about that. When somebody gives you wisdom, you're like, wow, it does something to you inwardly that touches that softer side of you, like like a woman, and then not manly, like sometimes how I come off and how I preach a lot of times, where it's like, man, he's really they're really manly, really really strong in what he's saying. But when I speak wisdom, it's like, and it really spoke to my spirit, it really spoke to my soul, like sweet honey. So that's the context of Sophia in the scriptures in regards to wisdom. So it goes on and it says, from the day that she made the sun and moon, she put a seal upon her heaven unto eternity. And then it says, and the worm that has been born out of the phoenix is a human being as well. Now I found that very, very, very interesting. And if you don't know why I found that very interesting, or very, very, very interesting, and you go back and watch my videos where I address the mark of the beast and stuff like that, because we definitely have discussed the worm in regards to the scriptures, and the serpent. That's why I'm saying the phoenix, it's a serpent. The phoenix, who is the serpent, who is the worm. The worm is the little king of the earth, the little king of the earth, dealing with the flesh, dealing more so with the flesh. Even Christ spoke about the worm. He said, "I am but a worm," and in the context of what he was speaking about, he was talking about the weakness of the flesh. The little king is weak. The little kings that we are supposed to be on this earth, we are weak in comparison to the spiritual kings and the spiritual riches that we receive, and the spiritual kings and queens that we are supposed to be. So it goes on and says, it is written concerning it, the just man will blossom like a phoenix. So the phoenix had all these different colors, there's anointing and everything. The same way we see Lucifer, he was anointed cherub that covereth, right? And God said he was going to bring him down. Said he's going to bring him down. So obviously, it's not a just man, because if a just man, then it wouldn't necessarily be applying to them. But they say the just man will blossom like a phoenix. So more so in the context of where they're coming from, the man is prideful like the phoenix, who is one of the evil spirits upon the earth, dealing with Satan. Then it goes on and says, and the phoenix first appears in a living state and dies and rises again, being a sign of what has become apparent at the consummation of the age. So there is some truth there if you can see it, because we have to die and be born again and rise out of in a way, rise out of the ashes of our dead flesh. The Bible even talks about that, except the seed first dies and is buried and everything, it can't grow forth and bring forth that fruit. But we know how we do it in comparison to how they are trying to accomplish it. So we go over here, and this is from a magazine, 1988, UK. Some of you are familiar with this, the Economist, January 1988. As you see, get ready for a world currency. And we have the phoenix rising from the ashes of the money burning to bring in what? A world currency. And you can go in there, you can decipher that. Interesting. 2018, and we are in 2020, and we know that they are heavily pushing a world currency, and one world currency and everything. So that's very, very interesting. And it has the phoenix, so we really see what's going on, and we want to make sure we touch these points so we can tie all the stuff together. So we go over here, and let me enlarge this real quick. Y'all give me a second. 2, 3, 4. Alright, we have the Phoenix again. Well, on Britannica, we just want to get a little bit more information. It says, Phoenix in ancient Egypt and in classical antiquity, a fabulous bird associated with the worship of the sun worship. Same thing they do in Freemasonry, just the worship of the sun, but they're not really worshiping the sun. That's what they tell the lower levels. So it goes on and says the Egyptian phoenix was said to be as large as an eagle with brilliant scarlet and gold plumage and a melodious cry. We also see in the book of it was Ezekiel. Or was it Isaiah? Can't remember right now. It's kind of late or early, I should say. early. Where it talks about that the tabrets were in Satan. He could sing very, very well. The popular saying is that he was the music director, the choir director. So it goes on and says only one phoenix existed at any time. So this article obviously contradicts what Herodotus said. And it was very long-lived. No ancient authority gave it a lifespan of less than 500 years. As its end approached, the phoenix fashioned a nest of aromatic boughs and spices, set it on fire, and was consumed in the flames. From the pyre miraculously sprang a new phoenix, which, after embalming its father's ashes in an egg of myrrh, flew with the ashes to Heliopolis, city of the sun in Egypt, where it deposited them on the altar in the temple of the Egyptian god of the sun, Ra. A variant of the story made the dying phoenix fly to Heliopolis and immolate itself in the altar fire, from which the young phoenix then rose. So it just depends on what account you read. There are definitely inconsistencies, but overall the story is still the same. Alright, before I get ready to close it out, I want to jump over here and I want to take a look at Jerry Rawlings. Now, his name is Jerry John Rawlings. He just recently died November 12th, and he was the Ghanaian military officer and politician who led the country from 1981 to 2001, and also for a brief period in 1979. He led a military, how you pronounce that, junta? Probably pronouncing it wrong, but y'all see it on the screen if you want to go check it out and learn how to pronounce it. until 1992 and then served 2 terms as the democratically elected president of Ghana. So this man was obviously the 2-time democratically elected president of Ghana. Now you read some of his interviews, you see some very, very interesting things about him. One, the faith that he professed was Catholicism. He professed to be a Catholic. That's what he professed to be. So keep that in mind. Now I want to go over here, and this was an interview that was done with him, and the person uploaded it January 6, 2009. So this is way back in 2009. So let's see what this man had to say, who was the president, the Catholic president of Ghana. And let's see if he has anything interesting to say in regards to the topic at hand. Obviously he does. So,
cosa ne pensa della democrazia esportata dalle grandi potenze?
It's a very complex situation for us, really. But let me see if I can just simplify it as I possibly can. We've always believed in and we know the value of democracy. Long before, we were colonized, and even after we were colonized. However, the world is going through changes, etc. We've been through the pain of colonialism, and today we're going through colonialism, neocolonialism. In the sense that what I'm trying to say is that there was a time when we saw the white man, our colonial powers, as our enemies. But I think, no, not that I think, something that is worse than an enemy is a traitor. Yes. And when our own...
So he does make an interesting point. He speaks about what's worse than the enemy is a traitor, somebody that's claiming to be with you. In the context he's speaking about, obviously the guy asks him about democracy. He's going to say that our view of democracy is different from the Western view of democracy. But I don't hold to the democratic government. I hold to what the Bible teaches, and the Bible teaches a monarchy or a monarch form of government. That's what I hold to, because that's where I'm from. Now, where you from, y'all may do things different, but where I'm from, that's how we get down. Going back to what he said, he's speaking about what's worse than an enemy is a traitor. And he's saying, yeah, we had our issues with the white man and everything that they have done, they continue to do. But what's worse than the white man doing what he did is a traitor, one who looks like you and is claiming to be for the people, for the movement and everything, and they are plotting your demise, just like a Judas Iscariot.
When we won our freedom, some of our countries were led by some of the most noble nationalists, of our time. But at the same time, with the passage of time, some of them became treacherous and rather betrayed our aspirations. In effect, what I'm trying to say is that as bad as an enemy can be, I think something worse than an enemy is a traitor.
And this is why you have to judge righteously. I have a lot of my Hebrew brothers and sisters, they will side with black people, and I recently made a post about this on my Facebook page if you want to go check it out. My Facebook page is public. Kelson King is easy to find me. Where my black brothers and sisters, my Hebrew brothers and sisters of the flesh, we will side with a black person simply because they are black, and they could be the devil himself. And just because they're black, we will side with them and, make excuses and all these different things. But as soon as a white person does something, then we're either all up in arms, or even for some of us, we don't say nothing. And you must have the right spiritual balance, judging righteously, not only when it comes to, speaking to my black brothers and sisters, when it comes to what you're going to say about what the white man and the white woman have done, but more so our own people who knew better. The Bible clearly says that the Gentiles are wild by nature. So a lot of things they do is just natural for them to do it. Who didn't have the law, but yet they still have the law within them, knowing not to kill, not to steal, not to do these different things. So who gets the greater judgment? The white man that y'all point the finger at for every single little thing, or the black people who knew better, knew the laws of God, the Hebrews who knew these things, and continued in unrighteousness and ultimately led us to the position that we are in now, being under this oppressive government. Not only oppressive toward black people, obviously, but also oppressive toward his own people, manipulating his own people, robbing his own people. And this is why we have the time of Jacob's trouble. Because as God has poured out his grace more and more, Israel and people in general have hardened and made their necks more and more stiff-necked. It's the reason why it's called the time of Jacob's trouble. It's crazy that people think that the time of Jacob's trouble has already started. Trouble, yes, we've had trouble since Adam and Eve. But the time of Jacob's trouble is a specific time period for a specific purpose and a specific reason, because of the continual rebellion, witchcraft, and disobedience of Israel primarily. Salvation to the Jew first and then to the Gentile. Judgment and wrath and all these different things to the Jew first and then to the Gentile. A time period that's marked by what? The catching away and the Antichrist, the devil himself, in the flesh, ruling over the world. Not in spirit, but in the flesh. On TV, everywhere, doing all these different things. And people bowing down to him because he has all the answers, seem to have all the answers. That has not happened. I get so frustrated because I have to mention this over and over and over and over again. When it's plain as day when you're being led by the Spirit. Oh, we're in the time of Jacob's trouble. No, we're not. The Bible says that when the time of Jacob's trouble happens, it's going to be a time that was never like it, and that will never be like it again in regards to God's judgment and God's wrath. And that's saying something, considering that God flooded the universe before and flooded the world. You had the universal flood, and then you had the global flood that was primarily focused here on earth. And God says that when he brings his judgment, that's going to be like nothing the world has ever seen before. It's going to be exactly that. Let's continue forward.
We've ended up evolving in the process of trying to modernize. We've ended up being westernized to the point where, as I sit here before you, when I wanted to even name my children African names, heroic names, I'm a Catholic.
You just heard what he said. He said he's a Catholic. So this man died November 12th, 2020. If he died a Catholic, he's in hell. Black, I don't care. He died. He's a Catholic. He died a Catholic. He's burning in hell. It's simple as that. Simple as that. We can't sit here and he was a great man. No. Then guess what? You are in error, and you are going against the very scriptures that you say you believe.
The Catholic Church, or that character, back at home, said, no, I cannot. There'll have to be Catholic names. I mean, those Catholic names are European names. I went through an argument with this priest, and I said, listen, I have a right to my identity. Don't take away my identity. Okay? I mean, Christianize me if you may, but don't Westernize me.
I actually like what he said right there, regardless of of this man's fate. He said, Christianize me if you may, but don't Westernize me. Because you can be, it's so powerful what he just said. Really what he said, because the context is what? He wanted to name his children African name, but they was like, the Catholic Church, I tell him, no, you can't name your children these names. Because he identified with the African culture, the African people, his own people. Even though he professed to be a Catholic, and we know Catholicism and Christianity ain't got nothing to do with each other, but just roll with me for a second. They believe it. So he's saying that, hey, Christianize me, give me the gospel, give me the truth, but don't Westernize me in the sense of don't strip me of my identity as a African. You talking about that I can't name my children these African names. It's so powerful what he said, because we're dealing with that today. If you profess to be a Hebrew Israelite, oh, you're going to hell. Like it's impossible to be a Hebrew of the flesh and also a Christian, which simply means a follower of the Messiah, a follower of Christ. I've discussed that before. Matter of fact, I didn't plan on it, but let's just go look at it, because, I know we got some new people. I have no reason to make nothing up. People talk about power word, but they don't understand the power words. Christian, a believer in and a follower of Christ. This is why when they said they were Christians, it was amongst believers. It wasn't amongst the heathen. Like people were lying against the scriptures, professing the Christian religion, received into the Christian church. Right? Meaning having the manner and spiritual character proper to a follower of Christ. So, watch this. Watch this. I told y'all this before. I told y'all this. See, I do this. I study this. These folks ain't studying this stuff like this, and they sitting there lying to you. So what does it tell us? The IAN, Christ, and then the IAN, variant of suffix AN, originally was from the stem of the word being attached, but later came to be felt as connected. So it connects the two words. So what is this? What does it mean? Pertaining to. So we talk about Christian, pertaining to Christ, follower of Christ. That's what a Christian means. So let's go over here. Let's jump over to Bible Gateway. Let's see what the actual Bible says. Since y'all say y'all believe the Bible, you love the scriptures. Acts 11:26, and when he had found him, he brought him unto Antioch, and it came to pass that a whole year they assembled themselves with the church and taught much people. And the disciples were called Christians first in Antioch. Let's go read it in context. Then departed Barnabas to Tarsus for to seek Saul. And when he had found him, so when Barnabas found Saul, who was Paul, he brought him where? Unto Antioch, where the church was. And it came to pass that a whole year they assembled themselves with the church, the body of Christ. Who? Tarsus and brother Paul assembled themselves a whole year. They were together with the body of Christ. And what? And they taught the people. And the disciples were called Christians first in Antioch. Who was in Antioch? The church, the believers, Tarsus, and Saul, who was Paul. So the term Christian was brought up by the Spirit, because these men and women had the Spirit of God. So God gave them the term Christian, not the heathens. And in these days came prophets from where? From Jerusalem unto Antioch. So who was there? Tarsus, Saul, the body of Christ, the prophets from Jerusalem, Hebrews. They came unto Antioch and they received the term Christian. because it was a term to be able to identify both physical Jews and physical Gentiles in the body of Christ. So these folks are lying to you, talking about that you can't call yourself a Christian and this and that, because they can't discern between Western Christianity, Westernized Christianity, and biblical Christianity dealing with Christ. Then we go to Acts 26:28. Then Agrippa said unto Paul, almost thou persuadest me to be a Christian. 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 16. Yet if any man suffer as a Christian, let him not be ashamed, but let him glorify God on this behalf. Glorify God on what behalf? That you have suffered as a Christian, a follower of Christ, whether you be a Jew or Gentile in Christ. It didn't say let any man suffer as a Hebrew. It says suffer as a Christian for the faith of Christ. Good Lord, y'all get it together. Stop letting these people deceive you because they're Hebrews and you feel like they got some clout. That's foolish. So he says again, Christianize me, but don't Westernize me. He said, preach to me about what you want to preach to me about, because he was a very religious man. He believed, that religion and the beliefs and everything and the morals, what we call morals. Obviously, we don't roll by morals because anybody can have morals, but we have the ultimate standard of Christ. But you get my point. He believed in that without those things, civilizations, they collapse. And that's absolutely true, because when you look at every ancient civilization, the basis of their civilization was their religious beliefs. No matter what somebody says, religion is this and religion is that, religion is that. Ancient Egypt is based on religious beliefs. And we know how they talk about ancient Egypt. The Mayans and all these different civilizations, they are based off of religious beliefs. So we need to understand these things. Let's push forward.
There were times, my wife and I is a great graphic artist. We made some beautiful Christmas cards that depicted Christmas in an African setting. And the Christmas cards sold so well, even with Catholic nuns, white Catholic nuns. We wanted to secure the patent. I went to an office, the Registrar General's office, to secure the patent. Can you believe that this fellow African, Registrar General, looking at my black personality, black face, told me that, no, I cannot. This was long after independence, and that it's going to take about 3 years. I said, why 3 years? He said, it'll have to go to England. It'll go to England, and it might take about 3 years before I'm granted the right to that patent or whatever it is they register. In other words, in effect, what I'm trying to say is that, so I have no right to even my creativity. I create my own, you take it away from me, and you have to send it to the colonial power. 3 years later, when they have reproduced it, and I have no more right to it. So as an African, when you're talking about democracy, etc., let's put it aside. Let me bring you to the current modern situation since the collapse of the Eastern Bloc. And we have this unipolar world. The mistakes they're making, by virtue of how they are approaching, especially, let's say, the Iraq and the Afghanistan situation, it is undermining international political morality. And what it's doing is that it's percolating downwards. So as it percolates downwards, every mistake you make downwards, by the time it gets to my country, the mistake is multiplied by 5 times. People in my part of the world are beginning to mimic and take the cue from the new global leaders.
Notice he talks about new global leaders. Pay attention, because he's going to say something in reference to Africa, what's called the motherland, and the New World Order. And also going to the point he made about once it reaches his country, it's from a snowball effect. So he's pretty much saying you can look at Africa and see what's going on with Africa and the Middle East, and that will give you an indication of what's going on in the what we call the developed countries like America and Great Britain and Europe and all these different places, because the decisions that the leaders have made, who obviously rule the world and run the world right now, the Gentile nations, the decisions that they have made have snowballed down to, fast forward to 2020, what we are dealing with now. Actually trace it all the way back to Adam and Eve, where it's just been a complete snowball effect until Christ came in and he did what he did. Let's continue forward.
What does that mean? Let me give you one fine example. In America, you have Republicans, you have the Democrats. You have industries that are strong and independent enough to be able to vote or finance whoever they wish. So there's a certain element of independence. But you come to my country, when you're talking about export, the new situation over the last few years is that those who are in power today, in asserting, taking the cue from the new global power, Bush's America, the unipolar world, they are destroying every opposition. Any business they think is associated with with the opposition has to be destroyed. Containing some of, typically of my country, what is happening? National armed forces are being denationalized, and they're trying to tribalize the army. My dear friend, do you know what you're doing? You are sowing the seed of instability. And yet, in spite of this, Ghana made a beautiful example in my time, and I'm not taking credit for it. Our people did it. All I did was to give our people a leadership of accountability, a leadership of integrity, and our people performed the miracle. And you listen to me, whether you're from Alaska, I've said it again, Greenland, wherever it is, so long as you give people a leadership of integrity, they will always perform the miracle. They'll give you the best. We did a fantastic job. My time was up. We lost to the opposition. The opposition has been committing the most atrocious crimes. I'm not saying this because I'm in opposition. I would have wished they had continued from where we left off. I would have saluted them and praised them. My country would be flying. But my country is involved in the most massive corruption, some of the brutal killings that have taken place, terrorizing, recruiting people from their parties into the police, the military, etc. And yet, BBC, CNN, Sky, American, media, the print media are all quiet because they want to portray the image of that fine Ghana.
So, really listen to what he just said, because he's about to make his, grand point. He says that all these atrocities are going on around the world. And he said they were, even during his time period, they were going on, but America was not allowing the information to get out there about what was really going on in Ghana, what was really going on, in Africa, the corruption and stuff like that. And the corruption is still going on. The corruption in Ghana is so bad, the police will sit there and bribe you for you to, not get a ticket. I watch those videos where people, expats, back to Africa and stuff like that. I got to know what's going on. Like I said, that corruption is still going on today. If it was going on way back then, and we know what the Bible says, that things were going to get worse, then how much more corruption is there today than when this man was in rulership, or even going back to when he did his interview? And so he goes and he says that, you know, this image is painted of Ghana, you know, great Ghana. And the media is not addressing this because they want to portray this certain image of Ghana to the public people and not really let the people know around the world what is going on. So the question we must ask ourselves is why. He's about to tell us. Let me go back just a little bit. Go back about right here.
I'm not saying this because I'm in a position. I would have wished they had continued from where we left off. I would have saluted them and praised them. My country would be flying. But my country is involved in the most massive corruption, some of the brutal killings that have taken place, terrorizing, you know, recruiting people from their parties into the police, the military, etc. And yet, BBC, CNN, Sky, American, media, the print media are all quiet because they want to portray the image of that fine Ghana as a showcase for the rest of Africa, so that they can use Ghana, who has done so well from my time into this time, and they're keeping quiet about this atrocious, the image of this government, because they do not want to undermine. They have enough problem in Afghanistan, they have enough problem in whatever it is, so they do not want to lose the situation in Africa in terms of the New World Order.
Did you hear what it did? There go right there. They don't want to lose the situation, the image that's portrayed with Ghana. They don't want to lose steam for the New World Order. Now, regardless of this man being a Catholic, he was still president. Obviously, he's very well educated. He knows what's going on. And here he is back in 2009 mentioning how they're using, pretty much he's saying they're using Africa and the image of Africa to bring in the New World Order. Let's go back, let's go back like right there.
Sky, American, media, the print media are all quiet because they want to portray the image of that fine Ghana as a showcase for the rest of Africa, so that they can use
Ghana. He's saying they want to use Ghana as a showcase for the rest of Africa. Look what's happening in Ghana, meaning that we can do this all over Africa. And if you don't know, Africa is ginormous. Ginormous. They don't want you to even know how big Africa truly is. Where multiple countries, continents fit into Africa, United States included.
Ghana, who has done so well from my time into this time, and they're keeping quiet about this atrocious, the image of this government, because they do not want to undermine. They have enough problem in Afghanistan, they have enough problem in whatever it is, so they do not want to lose the situation in Africa in terms of the New World Order. The unfortunate thing is that I don't care.
They don't want to lose the image of the New World Order that's being portrayed and pushed in Africa during this time period through Ghana. You know why? Because Africa will be the central location of the New World Order. It's not going to be America. It's not going to be any of the other places. It's going to be Africa. Keep telling y'all that. Some of you believe it, some of you don't. Hey, you got to research it on your own. know, my job is to prevent the information to make you think. And, you know, it's crazy because most people, they believe the masses. They believe the masses. They believe what the masses say. Most of the mass, they believe is what? America. America is a part of it. But all the nations are focused on Africa because they know what's going down. They know where it's going down at. And we have the actual scriptures to back it up. And here the ex-president of Ghana just told you, speaking about the New World Order and saying, hey, we already got to deal with the rest of the so-called Middle East. And we need Africa more. We need Ghana. We need these different nations more than we need these other nations. So we can continue portraying this image of the New World Order because the New World Order is going to be centrally located in Africa. So they need the African nations. And now you see 2020, a call back to Africa. I wonder why. I wonder why. Could it be possible that the Antichrist wants to rule over Israel as God? So he's act like he's calling people home, back home. I'm calling you back home. Which is why I dropped the previous video where I was speaking about Jerusalem above versus Jerusalem below. So I'm going to keep on bringing you the evidence. Rather you believe me or don't believe me, I'm going to give you something to compare. You know, and then you have to make a choice. I'm going to give you something to compare. And then you make the choice. So with that being said, God bless each and every one of you in Jesus Christ's name. As always, stay focused for Jesus. And as you know, the truth is not debated, it is declared.